You know that feeling when you rewatch a movie from your childhood and suddenly think, wait, was this actually brilliant? Or did I just have no standards back then? Hugh Grant lives exactly in that weird nostalgia bubble. For years, people have talked about him like he's the undisputed king of British charm. The floppy hair, the mumbled apologies, the nervous smile, the stuttering, posh, oh gosh, terribly sorry routine. He's been sold to us as the gold standard of romantic comedy acting, and lately even as a secretly great character actor. But the more you actually study the performances, scene by scene, the more one uncomfortable truth starts to appear. What we've been calling range is often just Hugh Grant doing slightly different levels of the same guy. And stay with me till the end, because in the last part of the video, I'm going to talk about why he still matters and how, in a weird way, the industry overrates him and underestimates him at the same time. That last segment is going to reframe how you watch him completely, especially if you've grown up loving his films. Before we jump into why Hugh Grant gets more hype than he sometimes deserves, do me a solid, hit subscribe, tap that bell icon, and let me know in the comments which cinematic giant I should tackle next. I'm director Ammar Hejazi, and today we're unpacking Hugh Grant, the bumbling rom-com prince turned self-aware villain and quirky supporting actor who's been charming audiences for decades, but maybe hasn't really earned the acting legend crown people keep trying to hand him. Let's start fair, because this is not a hit piece, and he is not talentless. If anything, Hugh Grant is extremely good at one very specific thing. Think about 4 Weddings and a Funeral, Notting Hill, Love Actually, Bridget Jones's Diary. He practically defined the 90s and early 2000s British rom-com male lead. He has a real, concrete skill set. He can land awkward humor with surgical precision. He knows exactly how to use hesitation, stammering, and half-finished sentences to sound vulnerable and endearing. He understands timing, when to undercut a romantic moment with a nervous joke, and when to let silence sit just long enough to feel tender instead of dead. Physically, he's subtle but very controlled. Little head tilts, eye flickers, micro smiles that read as, I'm embarrassed, but also kind of amused by myself. From a purely technical point of view, that's not easy at all. A lot of actors try that charming, self-deprecating mess thing and just come off annoying or fake. Hugh made it feel effortless. He built a very successful, very lucrative persona around being the man who's always halfway between an apology and a confession. And at his peak, he carried entire films on that persona. People weren't going to see those movies for plot twists. They were going to watch him be adorably uncomfortable for 100 minutes. So, this isn't Hugh Grant is trash. This is, Hugh Grant is good, sometimes very good, but the way people talk about him often jumps 2 or 3 steps ahead of what the work actually supports. The core issue is repetition. If you strip away the nostalgia and the soft lighting, his filmography from the 90s and early 2000s looks like this. Hugh Grant plays a variation of the same man over and over again. Let's be clinical for a second. The character template is usually upper rem nibbly class, slightly posh British guy, socially awkward but not socially incompetent, verbally quick but emotionally avoidant, attractive enough that his flaws read as endearing rather than red flag. His arc is almost always the same, self-deprecating, non-confrontational, slightly cowardly at the start, then finally grows a spine in the last act and declares his love or does the big gesture. Now, layer that template onto Charles in 4 Weddings and a Funeral, William Thacker in Notting Hill, Daniel Cleaver in Bridget Jones's Diary, which is basically the evil, sleazier version of the same type, the Prime Minister in Love Actually, Alex Fletcher in Music and Lyrics. Change the job, change the haircut, change the love interest, the underlying emotional architecture is nearly identical. From an acting craft perspective, that's not range, that's branding. He built a persona so strong that studios started programming movies around it. The question wasn't, what character should Hugh play? It was, what situation can we drop the Hugh Grant type into this time? That's commercially smart, but it's not what you'd call artistically adventurous. Now, defenders will jump in and say, yeah, but look at his later career. He plays villains now. He does satire. He's versatile. So let's talk about that. In movies like Paddington 2, The Gentleman, and Dungeons & Dragons, Honor Among Thieves, he's praised for breaking type and being hilarious. And yes, he is genuinely funny in those. He leans into vanity, pettiness, theatricality. He's no longer the shy romantic lead. He's the narcissistic, washed, or morally dodgy supporting character. But if you listen carefully, the mechanics are surprisingly similar. You still get the same musicality in the voice, the same self-awareness, the same instinct to undercut sincerity with a joke, the same tendency to slip into flustered, defensive babbling when the character is cornered. It's still Hugh Grant's core instrument. The energy is shifted from "I'm sorry I exist" to "I'm superior and ridiculous," but it's not some radical reinvention. It's his rom-com persona turned inside out and weaponized for comedy. So we need to be precise. He has range inside his type, but not much range outside of it. He's great at awkward charm, smug charm, sado clone charm, villain but charming charm. But is he truly disappearing into roles to the point where you forget you're watching Hugh Grant? Not really. You're almost always watching Hugh Grant performing, not some completely new, unrecognizable human being. There's also the question of emotional depth. He's excellent at appearing vulnerable. The sad eyes, the half smile when he's hurt, the little cracks in the voice, all of that sells the illusion of sensitivity. But how often do you feel that his characters have a rich inner world beyond what the script tells you? Think about some of his big emotional moments, like the speeches in Notting Hill or Love. Actually, the "I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy" scene from Julia Roberts' side that he reacts to, or the Prime Minister walking door to door during the school nativity play. They're iconic scenes. But are they iconic because of complex acting choices, or because they're cleverly written, perfectly scored, and edited to hit your feelings like a hammer? The risk with someone like Hugh Grant is that the charm becomes a shortcut. He doesn't really have to build a complicated psychological character. He just has to sprinkle that familiar mix of self-deprecation and warmth. And the audience will project depth onto him. From a strictly academic acting analysis perspective, that is surface-level work. Polished, controlled, effective, but still surface. You don't see a lot of genuine ugliness, deep sustained rage, truly unlikable vulnerability, or radical shifts in physicality. It's all kept within a very safe, palatable emotional bandwidth that's comfortable for audiences and safe for his image. Let's frame this in more technical terms. When you evaluate acting, there are two broad categories you can look at. One is technique, how skilled someone is at using their voice, face, body, and timing. The other is transformation, how much they can alter their usual habits to become someone new. On the technique side, Hugh Grant is sharp. His comic timing is consistently excellent. His vocal phrasing is musical and precise. He knows how to build a rhythm inside a scene and land a line on the perfect offbeat. His micro-expressions are well controlled. He understands how long to hold a look, how quickly to break eye contact, how to sell discomfort without overdoing it. But on the transformation side, he's limited. He doesn't shift his physical center of gravity that much. He doesn't radically change his energy or tempo from role to role. He doesn't experiment often with characters who are genuinely unsettling, deeply unlikable, or emotionally alien. Even when he plays villains or sleazebags, he still leans heavily on being entertaining, charming, or self-aware. So you end up with an actor who clearly has craft, but rarely uses that craft to take genuine risks, and that's where the word overrated starts to make sense. When we talk about him as one of the great actors of his generation, we're quietly ignoring the fact that his body of work is built more on refining one persona than on exploring a wide landscape of human possibility. Here's the twist that I mentioned near the beginning. He's overrated as an actor in the grand, transformational genius sense, but underrated as a very specific cinematic tool. The industry overestimates him when it talks about him like he's a deep, protean talent whose mere presence guarantees emotional complexity, and when it treats his lady career villain and character roles as shocking proof of previously hidden range, instead of what they actually are, a clever rebranding of the same instrument. But the industry also underestimates him in a different way. Very few people can reliably deliver that specific mix of irony, insecurity, and charm at his level, project after project. He genuinely does bring a layer of wit and self-awareness to movies that would otherwise be completely forgettable. In ensemble pieces, he is almost always watchable, even when the script is lazy. Think of him less as a chameleon and more as a very specialized spice. If you throw Hugh Grant into a project that understands how to use him, the whole dish suddenly gets more flavor. If you ask that spice to transform into a completely different ingredient, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. So, is Hugh Grant overrated? If you take the marketing, the nostalgia, and the fan love at face value, then yes, as an actor in the pure, shape-shifting, who even is this person? of things sense, he is overrated. He doesn't show huge transformative range, he doesn't disappear into roles, and he doesn't reinvent himself every decade. But if you judge him for what he actually is, a brilliantly calibrated screen persona, a master of a very narrow, very specific style of performance, and a guy who understands exactly how to play with his own image, then he's actually being used pretty much correctly, and sometimes even underappreciated. He's not a fraud, he's not some talentless guy who stumbled into fame, He's a specialized actor whose persona got mythologized into something larger than it actually is. The gap between that myth, undisputed king of British acting, secret genius, character actor now, and the actual work, very good at being a version of himself in different situations, is exactly where the word overrated quietly sits and makes sense. If you feel like this kind of breakdown hits that sweet spot between light comedy and real academic analysis, hit like, drop a comment telling me your favorite Hugh Grant performance, and tell me who I should dissect next. Is it time to talk about another rom-com legend? Or do we go full chaos and tackle someone sacred like Meryl Streep? You decide. I'm Ammar Hejazi, and I'll see you in the next one.